Hello everyone, welcome to our Angular from Scratch series. So in the last video we have covered modules and routing, and now in this video we'll learn how we can deploy, build our Angular application, and we can check it live on any hosted environment. So to make our website or application live, basically the Angular application, we will be dealing with mostly with these three files. These three files are very important for us. The first one is environment file, then angular.json and package.json. So we'll be making changes inside these files to make it deployable to any hosted environment. Okay, so now let's move to the VS Code, and now I'll guide you step by step how you can deploy your Angular web application. So I'm inside my first step. So first I'll create the environment file. So inside src folder, I'll be creating one more folder called environments. And now inside this environments folder, I'll be creating my environment file for each environment. So first environment.ts, this is the default environment file, which is for dev environment. And then I'll be creating one for prod, and then one more for QA. And if you want, you can create other files as well, like for stage. So for example, if I want a separate dev environment file, I can create that as well. So that is just uh, temporary. Okay. So if you want, you can create as much file you want. So this is the default configuration. So basically we have something like production is false. We are defining if this file is for production or not. And if there is any API URL that we'll be defining inside it, or any other properties that we want to store inside our environment file that we want to access dynamically for different environment. So similarly for this also, the production is false, and we have a separate, we'll be having a separate URL for API, like for it's my app. I have a dev APIs as well. So I'll be providing URL to the dev APIs. Okay. And similarly for QA, yep, environment, the production is false. And similarly, if I have the API endpoint for my QA environment, so I'll be defining that here. That here. Okay, and the environment name, yeah, and the environment name will be QA. Okay, save it. And now, yeah, the last one is production. So for this, the production will be true. Okay, and the same here for the API endpoint. I'll be providing the prod API endpoint. Okay, so all these properties, variables, API endpoints, URLs will be fetched dynamically for different environments. Okay, and I will show you how. Now, as we have created all the files, now we'll move to angular.json to make it dynamically pick all those properties, URLs for different environments. So inside our project configurations, we have different configurations, like we have for production, we have for QA, and we have for development, and we can create others as well inside this. Okay. Yeah. So you can see we have prod, we have QA, we have development, and same we are providing the configuration for these environment file here. So I'm replacing my environment.ts file because this is the default file. So I'm replacing it with the prod file for production environment, so that all the variables URL will be picked for prod from the production file. Okay. And similarly for QA as well, if I go here, so these are some properties that you can define. You can read about those. So QA, for QA, it's also I'm just replacing the environment.ts file with the environment QA.to, and these some properties that follow. Okay, so for development, we are not replacing anything because we are just using the .ts file, so we are just defining the property. And now inside package.json, we will be creating our scripts. So script help us to run our application, build our project through the commands directly. Okay, so we have created for start scripts for development, QA, and production. Okay, so we have to define the configuration by hyphen configuration, development, QA, and production, and same for build. So we need to build our project to deploy it. So same for that, I have created the different script. Okay, so that is done. Now, yeah. So now I can now fetch my URL dynamically. So we were using this hard-coded API endpoint, but now we can fetch that API endpoint from our environment file that we have defined for different environment. So from here, we are just importing this environment file. Okay. So now, once this environment is imported, from this environment, I'm taking the URL and then I'm appending other URL pattern to it. Okay. So this URL will be dynamic for different environment. It will be different. Okay. And then I'll be able to hit my API for different environment. Now, yep, yeah, it will pick the Q environment for QA, this environment. Okay, and prod, it will pick this environment. Once it's replaced that file at the runtime. Okay, so it will pick that URL dynamically. Okay, there will be multiple properties inside environment file. All those will be picked dynamically. Now let's start our app with npm start, and it will internally run this command and JSON serve, which we have defined inside package.json. Now application is running now on localhost 4200. We'll check once if our app is working fine. Yeah, so this is what we created. Okay. Now, yeah, now let's build our application to deploy it on any server. So for that, we have a command that we define inside our package.json, our script, npm run build for prod. So prod, we are defining that we are running it for prod, which will use configuration prod. Okay, configuration that we defined inside our angular.json. So once we do it, it start building our project. Yeah, it started. And once it build, it will put our code inside this disk folder. It will create a disk folder here, and it will put all those code in. So now it's done. It created one JS file, minified JS file for us, and the CSS file, and it put it inside this disk folder, my first step. Okay, now this disk folder I'll be using to put my code anywhere. This has the same JS file and CSS file. Okay, now I need any hosted environment. Like for example, you'll be hosting it on AWS or any other on environment. So I'll be needing this folder, this code, this browser. This contains all those code, this minified code that I have. So I'll be copying this, basically my app, and then I have this Netlify that I'm using. Here I'm just uploading my first tab browser folder, and I'm uploading it. This is the free version to test our application. So I'm just uploading it, and it is done. It has published my changes. Yeah, it provided me this URL. If I open it, yeah. So my app is working fine as it was working on my local. exactly the same. The buttons are working. Okay, my navigation links are also working. So far it looks fine to me. Okay, so we didn't face any challenge here. We deployed our application successfully, but sometime you might face an issue with page loading. You will notice an error that your page is not found. Okay, so you will sometime notice 404 not found error. So how you will resolve it and how I'm handling it. So for that, there is for rectify. For rectify, what I've done is inside my yeah. So for Netlify, sorry, for Netlify, what I've done is inside my SRC folder, I've created one file redirects. So what redirect does is it tells the environment that for any path, just take the route to the index.html. So index.html is my entry point for my application. So it will take it to the index.html and then it will be able to load my application successfully without any issue. So it needs that index product that starting point it requires. So how it is going to add it to the build. So for that, what I've done is inside angular.json, inside my build configuration, in the assets, I've defined these redirects. Okay. And once I do the build inside my disk folder, it adds that redirect also. And then it will be handling my routes automatically. Okay, so that's how the routing, we handle the routing and we deploy our application. So I hope you get it. Now I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.